Bienvenido, Billy, gracias por estar en el canal, bienvenido. Ok, quisiera preguntar sobre sus inicios, la evolución de su trabajo en estas dos producciones que se llama Norses a Martin, que bueno, son producciones de los inicios del trabajo de...
Eh, John, puedes anotarme en el chat porque resulta que tengo acá problemas con el sonido,
Ya,
pero puedes anotarme en el chat.
ya se lo escribí.
Okay. While John is typing some info that I asked for it, first, welcome to the channel, Billy. It's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
And no, you're welcome. And like John always do, let's talk about your beginnings, man. John mentioned some productions. We're still experiencing some issues with the sound, but in general terms, what can you tell us about starting in this enterprise? I mean, a long time ago. So, what can you tell us about your beginnings?
My beginnings. I started out, I always wanted to perform. I started working in local theater. And from there, I went into New York, got an agent, got a manager, and I started auditioning. And the first audition I went on, very first one, was Jaws 2. And that changed my whole life. It took me out to California, where I started going out for different movies. While I was out in California, between auditions, I started writing plays to give myself something to perform in, to act in. And the plays took off and had a life of their own. I now have 25 plays that I've done. I do them in New York, and then I publish them, and they get done all over the world. And while I was writing the plays, I was also auditioning to be in movies. And then I entered television because somebody read my plays and they wanted new writers for their TV show. And so that brought me into TV. So my career has been a little of this, a little of that. I go over here, I direct, I produce, I act, and it's been a lot of fun.
And finally, John, at the productions, I will translate everything, don't worry. He asked you also about nurses and marching.
Which two? Martin?
Norse and Martins.
Nurse. Nurse
And
was the worst.
Martin.
Nurses was the worst show I ever worked on.
Wow,
Terrible, terrible show.
really, really, really. Why?
Yeah, it was. I'll try and be simple about this. It was run by a company I did not respect. They did not respect the writers. They did not respect the actors, and it became an assembly line. Uh, there was no creativity. There was no fun. Martin, however, was a lot of fun. That Martin, I most of the TV shows I've worked on, and Martin was one of them, was you take a comedian, a stand-up comedian who tells jokes. That's all he does, and you take that person and you make them into a TV star, and you build a whole show around their stand-up performance act, and that's what we did with Martin. And he went from a complete unknown to a megastar overnight. And he was fun. He was funny, and we did that show. He was very conscious of his audience, not the audience in the camera, the audience in the bleachers watching us film, and he performed for them. We did one take for every scene. That's it. Nowadays, most TV shows, you do 4, 5, 6, 7 takes, and you're exhausting the audience while they're watching it. We did one take, like a play, straight through, and he was fun. We were there. We didn't create the show, but we developed the show, and we wrote a lot of the characters that he played. Roscoe, the little kid, uh, Otis, the security guard, There were a bunch of characters that we created. So that was fun. That was fun, and he's one of a kind.
Okay, I will translate now. John, quiero decirte por si vas a preguntar sobre Jaws 2, que ya Billy la mencionó en el sentido que cuando él, después de haber hecho, pues obviamente, esta película clásica, él entró al teatro, tiene una gran cantidad de obras de teatro a su nombre, quiero decirte eso, y sobre Martin, adivina, en cada episodio lo hacían en una sola toma, imagínate eso,
Wow.
y que él ayudó a crear toda esa gran cantidad de personajes que oíste mencionar. Dice que eso innovó y que incluso eso no se haría ahora.
Sí, bueno, aparte de que no fue una de las producciones más queridas por Billy, sí hay dos producciones que él invirtió y es el tema de Daddy Did It and the Wayans Bro. Ahí te lo escribí por chat, pero fue algo diferente, fue algo chévere.
It is crazy because some productions, maybe back in the days, they were not well accepted, but time made it his job. So, what can you tell us about Daddy Dearest and the Wayans brother, man? A
Daddy
long time
Dearest
ago.
was Daddy Dearest was the most fun I ever had doing a television show. It was so much fun. Don Rickles, who starred in the show, was the funniest man you ever met in your life, and we he ad libbed so much, and he's a very famous comedian, so he was famous for insulting people, and we kept the cameras running even when the scenes were over because he was always on, and he would attack the audience, and he would attack the cameraman, and he would attack the costumer, and it was so funny. We ended up taking pieces of that and sticking it on the end of our show every week because people like to see him do it so much. So that was great, and one of the nicest people I ever met too. And what was the other show?
The
What
one
other?
with the Wayans brothers. Wayans brothers.
Oh,
The Wayans
Wayans
brothers.
brothers. Yeah,
Yes,
the
the
Way
Wayans.
the Wayans brothers. I fell into that. My writing partner Jane and we write very fast. I believe everybody should write fast, and especially in television. So that show was supposed to go on the air. They had a specific date it had to air, but they didn't have a show. They fired the guy who was running it and brought us in to try and save the thing. So we had 2 weeks to create the show, cast the show, and put it on the air, and it was a little crazy, but luckily Sean and Marlon Wayans were hilariously funny and great to work with.
It's great to know before I translate that you worked with the king of roasting, man. I I'm from Latin America, but I really love all the culture for Hollywood. And I know that Don Rickles is
Oh,
he was a master of his craft, man. Wow.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Y will translate. Pues John, imagínate. Dice que Daddy Dires es lo más divertido que ha hecho. De hecho, bueno, tú sabes, ¿no? El legendario Don Rickles, tú sabes que
Sí, lo mejor.
el mejor roster de la historia, él hizo tantas bromas al público, bueno, eso, que justo al final del episodio seguían pasándolas, o sea, era una máquina, dice que una persona increíble, amable, y lo de los Guayans hay una historia muy interesante. Resulta que cuando iba a salir el show al aire, ya habían despedido a la persona que iba a hacerlo, entonces resulta que llamaron a Billy, a un gran equipo, y tuvieron que escribir de nuevo todo lo que salió al aire. Entonces, pero no, que dice que los Wayans, súper increíbles, súper amables, y pues yo le dije, ¿no? Que el tiempo le dio la razón a esas producciones.
Y es verdad, aparte de tener ese concepto de productor, sí menciono las partes que él sale como actor, Tats y la de Way and Providence, que esos son goles infravalorados que no se lo mencionan.
But not only your work as a producer, man. I mean, there's John mentioned two productions that he's happy that mentioned it because needed that are Tats and Awaken Providence, man.
Mm.
What can you tell us? Yeah.
Taps was really really good. It starred George C. Scott and Timothy Hutton, and we were as a military academy. So they gave us 4 weeks of rehearsal for the actors to live in the military academy and learn all the military training. Then we started to shoot the movie. But during the rehearsals, Tom Cruise had a small part. During the rehearsals, the director switched roles with Tom and another guy, and it made Tom a superstar. Um, but everybody on there was really, it's a great cast of people, and it's still a good film. It's really a good film. Awake in Providence, an assistant director of mine from my TV shows got his first directing job. And he came to Jane and me and said, "The script's too short. Can you do anything with the script?" And Jane said, "We'll rewrite it if you give us roles in the film." And he said, "Sure." So we rewrote the show. We rewrote the movie. We gave ourselves acting roles in it. I gave Adrienne Barbeau, my wife at the time, I gave her a role too. And it was a really fun movie, and it won a whole bunch of awards at film festivals. So it was both those things were great to work on.
So many legends. I will translate. John, pues imagínate en Tats, o sea, George Scott, Timothy Hutton, dice que hubo entrenamiento militar y hubo una cuestión muy interesante porque el rol que le iban a dar a otra persona se lo dieron a Tom Cruise. Stats fue, digamos, la producción que llevó, que fue una de las, digamos, de cierta forma catapultó la carrera de Tom, pero dice que no, que súper, súper genial, digamos, como que todo el ambiente, la película le fue muy bien, y pues acá la mencionó y lo dijo, ¿no? A su esposa, en Awakening Providence, resulta que le pidieron a él, y en esa época la mujer, Adrián Barbeau, que, oye, escribe estos roles. Le dijeron, listo, con una sola condición, porque eran unos roles muy cortos, déjanos actuar ahí, de una. Esa es la razón, digamos, por la que a ti te gustó las actuaciones de ellos, porque le dieron la libertad no solo de escribir más esas líneas, sino de interpretarlas.
Eso sí, es verdad. Bueno, antes de seguir hablando de esas producciones, sí menciono sobre, bueno, las dos icónicas de él, que me, me insultaría a mí mismo si no las digo. Las de, bueno, Tiburón 2, que la segunda parte es muy buena, súper buena, y la de Star Trek, hombre, ¿quién no lo conoce por Star Trek en esta parte?
I know, John, you mentioned it before, but man, we needed to do it again. John said he will kill himself. Hopefully, no. If he don't mention not only Jaws 2, but man, Star Trek. I mean, wow. Go ahead,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Jaws 2 was it was supposed to be a 4 week cuatro semanas, is that right? 4 week uh,
4 semanas.
job. It ended up being 11 months. It took so long to film that movie. It was most of us who were in the film. It was our first film, so to us it was film school. We learned how to make movies for 11 months, and it was great. And I'm still close friends with every single person who was in that film and on the crew. We get together all the time. Um, it started with a different director and a different writer. After 4 weeks of rehearsal and 1 week of filming, they sent everybody home and shut the film down, and we thought it was over. Then I got a call to go to Florida. I show up in Florida, new director, new writer. It was Carl Gottlieb, who wrote Jaws and now did Jaws 2, and a whole bunch of new actors. And I think it's a pretty good sequel. It's not Jaws, but it's Jaws 2. It's pretty good. And that started my whole Hollywood career, really. And while I was in Hollywood, I had a meeting with Robert Wise, the director of Star Trek, who edited Citizen Kane. He directed The Sound of Music. He directed West Side Story. and he was now making the first Star Trek movie. And he wanted to meet me after seeing me in Jaws 2. The weird part is he wanted me to play an alien on the ship. What that had to do with Jaws 2, I have no idea. but I got to work on that movie for 4 months with the cast from the original TV series. They were all fantastic. And I do tell this story, and I'll tell you. It was everything about that movie was secretive. I had the makeup. I had to hide in the dressing room. No one on the entire Paramount lot could see me. They didn't want anybody to see the costumes, so I had to hide out in my dressing room. And my girlfriend at the time, Jane, I said, "Come to the thing. I'm going to sneak you onto the set. Nobody, secret thing is stupid. I'm going to sneak you on." So I took her onto the set and I hid her behind lamps. And I hid her behind boxes and wires, and she could see through that thing. And then we went to film the next scene, and we start to, action, and we start to film, and all of a sudden, Captain Kirk, William Shatner, says, "Cut! There's somebody back there." And I thought, I just got fired. I know I just got fired. And then he says, "You can't see from back there. Somebody get this young lady a chair." And they brought out a director's chair and put it right next to the camera. And Jane sat there and watched us film the whole thing. So I've always loved Bill Shatner. So, but they both films were fantastic. And then I went from that to Taps. So those 3 in a row, pretty good films.
3 things. Those stories that you told us could be great movies. I mean, 4 to 11 weeks with a charm, man, it's scary. 2, no,
Yeah.
man, William Shatner is such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I always think of him as a great person, but knowing for that story, wow. And 3, now it got sense that Robert Wise directed it because technically that movie is a space opera. So musicals and opera, so
Yeah.
meets
Yeah.
together. Yeah, it got sense. Thank you. Pues yo en esto lo voy a armar tú, lo van a ver los fanáticos. Creo que le voy a dedicar, yo creo que te la pedir un saludo a una persona. John, sobre Tiburón 2. Bueno, you know that just in Latin America we call it tiburón. Did you know it? No? So
Tiburón
when I say
2. Tiburón 2.
Tiburón
Right?
2, yes, we always
Yeah.
say tiburón. Pues John, Tiburón 2, adivina. me da miedo, ¿no? Obviamente, casi todo fue una escuela casi de actuación para todo el elenco, nuevo elenco, aunque lo escribió el mismo que escribió la 1. Eran 4 semanas y se volvieron 11 semanas. Y lo más loco aún es que después esto cerraron el set y como que volvieron a hacer todo de nuevo. O sea, una de las grabaciones más locas, pero dice, al igual que tú, excelente secuela, no es la 1, pero tiene su fuerza. Sobre la 2, sobre Star Trek, pues Robert Wise, tú sabes, el director de The Sound of Music, de West Side Story, le dieron la oportunidad de hacer la película de Star Trek. Tú sabes que mucho después de la serie, con el elenco oficial. Hay una historia muy linda, porque en esa época, todo en esa película es un secreto, ¿no? Tú sabes que la serie fue un éxito. Entonces, él metió a la novia de la época al set, pero a escondidas. Como que, oye, hazte detrás de los cables, hazte detrás de cualquier cosa. Y resulta que William Shatner, Capitán Kirk, dice una escena, corten, hay alguien espiando. Entonces, en ese momento, Willis dijo, oh, no, me despiden. Aparte que pues él nunca entendió cómo le dieron un papel iba a ser al principio un alien, ¿qué tenía que ver eso con tiburón? Y ahí era que ocurre. Resulta que William Shatner le dice, por favor, díganle a esa muchacha que allá no va a poder ver, acérquese. Y ella pudo ver de primera mano toda la película. Yo entonces le dije 3 cosas, que bueno, que primero esas 2 historias dan para una buena película, imagínate 11 semanas con un tiburón. Segundo, que eso prueba lo hermosa persona que es William Shatner, o sea, siempre había oído historias de que él era un amor, pero es bueno saberlas. Y 3, pues que John, tiene sentido que Robert Wise haya dirigido Star Trek porque Star Trek es el inicio de las óperas espaciales.
Eso es verdad. Ahora sí hay que reconocerle sobre la nominación que tuvo el Emmy. No se lo he mencionado, es una nominación al Emmy increíble. Es una producción clásica, que eso sí hay que reconocerlo. Y lo felicitamos. Y también, define alguna anécdota, experiencia, lo que sea.
Wow. John said that it's time to acknowledge your Emmy nomination for
Ah,
Primetime Outstanding. Yeah, man. And it's crazy because, I Love Lucy is international. For us as Latinos, that show is really important, as Raymar, for Desi, of course. And tell us more.
first of all, Desi invented the way we do television. And never got credit for the longest time, but he invented the multi camera, the way you light it, all of that stuff. That was all Desi Arnaz. Um, the whole reason I wanted to go into the business, when I wanted to go into comedy, was because of I Love Lucy. I was a fanatic fan of I Love Lucy. I studied everything. I studied the scripts. I learned how to write from studying how they structured their scripts. I learned comic timing from watching the actors. I learned how to produce by knowing how he produced that show with Jess Oppenheimer. Anyway, I was in a development deal at a studio trying to come up with a show to sell. And during that time, we found the pilot episode of I Love Lucy, the very first piece of footage that Desi and Lucy paid for to the pilot for their TV show. Um, and no one had seen it in 40 years. There were only two copies of this thing ever made. One was Desi's, and one belonged to a man named Pepito the Clown, who created the Vaudeville Act. This is a long story, so I'll try and condense it. CBS was afraid of Desi playing Lucy's husband because he wasn't American. So anyway, they put an act together and toured the country to show that people would accept a Latin man and an American woman. It's disgusting, but that's what they had to do. And Pepito put the act together. As a return favor, he was the guest star in the pilot episode. And so Desi gave him the other copy. 40 years go by. A producer friend of ours was at a dinner at the widow of Pepito, Pepito's wife. And she started showing home movies. And one of the home movies she showed was I Love Lucy's pilot episode that no one had seen in 40 years. So Bud Grant, who was the head of the studio I was working at, came into my office and said, "You're not going to guess what I found. I found the I Love Lucy pilot. Nobody's seen it. Do you want to do a special?" I said, "Oh, you've come to the right place. I know everything that they ever said, everything they ever did." So we agreed to do it. And we go to CBS network with the film. And they said, "We own that." I said, "Yes, I know. We want to do an hour special and introduce the film." They said, "Oh, no, no, no. We want to cut it. We want to cut it to 22 minutes. I said, "You're not cutting this. This is historical." And they said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Give me a full hour. I'll show the pilot and I'll fill in the extra time by telling the story of how they got to make the film." And they said, "Okay." So I got the original writers, Bob Carroll Jr. and Madeline Davis, to fill in the blanks. I got footage of Lucille Ball telling how they made the pilot, footage of Desi Arnaz saying how they made the pilot. I put it all together, and then I brought in Lucy Arnaz, their daughter, to narrate, to be the host of the evening. I pulled that whole thing off in 3 weeks, from the time we gave them the footage to the time we had to turn it in, because it had to be on the network at a certain time. And then we got nominated for an Emmy Award, which was pretty great. But the big joy for me was not the Emmy nomination. It was seeing my credit in the heart of the I Love Lucy heart, produced by Billy Van Zandt and Jane Milmore. That made it all worthwhile. And we did not win the Emmy. I don't know why, but I still think they miscounted, but who knows?
One, awards doesn't determine the career of somebody, but sometimes the biggest awards are the other ones. Two, as a Latino, thank you. And three, uh, it's crazy because if you see it, that's like the history behind it. It's like a fan footage. I mean, you know that genre. Wow,
Yeah.
I will do my best. I will do my best translating, man. But thank you, that was beautiful. Pues John, yo
Okay.
creo que una de las respuestas más, you're welcome, una de las respuestas más hermosas de este canal. Primero, él dice que sí, que hay que reconocerlo, nadie lo reconoce. Desi Arnaz es el padre de la televisión, como la conocemos, inventó grabar con cámaras múltiples, el cómo hacer humor. Dice que, y bueno, nota que ya hemos tenido acá personas que son fanáticos del show, pero dice Billy que él se sabe todo, todos, los diálogos, todo. Resulta que hay una historia muy, dijo que la cortó y ya era lo posible, muy interesante, porque solo existían dos copias del piloto de Lucy. Uno la tenía Desi Arnaz y otra la tenía Pepito el Payaso, que Pepito el Payaso, tú sabes que fue el que inventó el acto de vodevil. Siempre hubo ese interés de conseguir ese piloto, pero pues CBS no quería, tú sabes, ¿no? Además de que hay una historia, porque Desi y Lucy les tocó hacer la obra de teatro primero e irse de gira porque nadie iba a aceptar que Desi fuera y dice que es horrible que hicieran eso, que Desi fuera el papel del esposo de Lucy, porque pues, un latino y una estadounidense pues como que no cuadra en esa época. Esto resulta que un día que invitaron a la fiesta de Pepito y la mujer dijo, vamos a mostrar unas películas y mostraron el piloto de Lucy que lleva 40 años guardado. Resulta que ahí llamaron bueno, los productores y oigan, no, pero mire, es que ahí está el piloto. ¿Qué ocurre? El programa tiene 20 minutos de ese piloto y el resto es las entrevistas, la reconstrucción. Dice que no entiende cómo no ganaron el Emmy, pero que lo más bello que le pudo haber ocurrido fue que en el nombre de I Love Lucy sale pues el crédito de él. Entonces yo le dije que pues primero que los premios no reconocen, no, a veces los premios no son los que reconocen las cosas, sino otros tipos de premios. Segundo, que gracias por contar historia, pues para nosotros como latinos. Y tercero, John, si analizas y él dijo que sí, es una historia de metraje encontrado, ¿no? Analízalo.
No, eso es buenísimo. Bueno, dos últimas preguntas. La antepregunta me mencionó acerca sobre un trabajo de él y es sobre hizo la voz de Jerry el dentista en American Dad, ¿sí? El icónico. Y lo otro es el tema de Harold en esta producción clásica también que es súper increíble.
I think you understand the Spanish. Yes, you were Jerry the
I'm,
dentist.
I'm
Yes, el dentista.
understanding more than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us first how was appearing American Dad, and later I will ask you another question.
American Dad was so much fun because you'll notice that's a running theme for me. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it. I always have fun. Um, American Dad, the creators of that show were what we called baby writers. It was on Daddy Dearest. Their very first job writing was for me on Daddy Dearest. They created American Dad, and they also knew I performed. So I got a phone call many years after Daddy Dearest asking if I wanted to come do a guest star spot on the show. So I did. I played Jerry the dentist in a couple episodes. I just did a couple more of them too, um, and I love doing voiceovers. That my voice is so weird anyway, but it worked for that show, and I'm real proud of the guys, Matt Weitzman and Mike Barker, who created the show. But I really enjoy doing it. And I hope they bring me back for a lot more.
Do you want me to translate first, or do you want to be asked with the other question?
Whatever you want.
No, I will translate first, and John
Okay.
primero. Yes, I will. Oh no, the other question is about your role in Harold in Anything But Love. If
Ah,
you wanna do it, go ahead. I got
sure,
good memories. So go ahead.
sure. Anything But Love starred Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard Lewis, very big stand-up comedian, and we were brought on. That was our second TV show as writers, and the way they got us to write on that show. I'm talking about Jane, my writing partner, and myself. They let us act on the show in addition to writing the show. Now, back then, nobody did that. You either were a writer or you were an actor. Nobody let you do both. I don't think, if you know the show The Office, when that show started, that was the first time that was sort of the rule got broken, and now everybody writes and acts at the same time, and they realize that you can do both. But back then, it was a big deal for me to do both. And I would rehearse with the actors, then I'd go back to the writers' room, and then I'd go down to the stage and back to the writers' room, and I had a ball doing that. And I learned a lot about editing from the creator of that show, Peter Noah. He let us, learn a lot of different things, um, and that was also the first time. The first show I worked on was Bob Newhart's show, another comedian, and he did it like Lucy and Desi and like Martin. One take, move on. One take only, do it like a play. On Anything But Love, suddenly we're doing 2 and 3 and 4 takes of every scene. And I said to Peter, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "Well, the actors get better on the second, third, and fourth." I said, "That's because," and I said to him, "That's because you give them a second, third, and fourth take. Give them one take and move on." He didn't do it that way, but that was it was a great writing staff. I think it was one of the best writing staffs on any TV show ever, and I'm still friends with all those people too. I'm friends with everybody I work with. Otherwise, why would I work with them?
Now I will translate. Thank you. Pues John, historias increíbles. Te voy a dar un dato buenísimo sobre American Dad. Lo que pasa es que los escritores de ese show, el primer trabajo que tuvieron escribiendo fue en Daddy Dires, imagínate. Y o sea, siempre, cuando están haciendo American Dad, siempre le dijeron a Billy, oye, queremos que tú hagas un personaje. Jerry el dentista, tú sabes que apareció muchas veces, él desea que lo vuelvan a llamar, eh, y él, aunque él dice que ama hacer voiceover, aunque pues dice que tiene una voz extraña, pero que lo vamos a hacer. Y la historia con esa producción, obviamente Jamie Lee Curtis, lo que pasa es que date cuenta que lo que ahora es muy normal en televisión, que él dice que de hecho el show que rompió todas las reglas fue The Office, obviamente, donde los escritores también pueden actuar, pero que en esta producción ocurrió algo similar, porque él decía que para él y para Jim, la única regla que tenían para escribir algún rol es que les dejaran interpretar el rol. Entonces, por eso ocurrió esa cuestión donde, listo, yo escribo, pero también interpreto el papel como el de Harold. Ocurrió algo muy gracioso porque esto, uno de los shows que él había escrito en el pasado fue el de Bob Newhart, imagínate, y que tanto en ese show como el de Lucy, una toma y ya, una toma y ya. Resulta que en este show hacían 3, 4, 5 tomas. Y él decía, pero ¿por qué hacen eso? Entonces decían, no, pues porque en la tercera, cuarta toma los actores mejoran. Y él decía, pero porque tú los estás dejando hacer eso. O sea, él es fan de grabar una toma y chao. Pero si te das cuenta, en este programa él hizo algo pionero que ahorita se hace en la televisión.
Y hay una leyenda urbana en Latinoamérica, bueno, para los que dicen que Jester, bueno, la de sí, sí querido, es la última cúspide de la comedia estadounidense, donde ya los clásicos quedaron hasta ahí y entró una nueva. No sé, eso dice esa leyenda urbana.
Okay, we try. I I will do my best because John told me that if you know that there is an urban legend in the forums, mostly in Latin America, you know that we love comedy because we are so funny. And they say that Jester, yes, is in our blood. Uh, get, do you feel that Jester was like the peak of comedy and later everything changed? Do you feel in that way?
Well, I I'm a fan of silent movies, so I go way back. I go way back. Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin, Fatty Arbuckle. Those. Actually, I started out loving Lucy, and I learned about the people I just mentioned from Lucy because she studied with them all. And Buster Keaton taught her how to use props and all that sort of thing. So, to me, I'm not a big fan of current comedies. I don't enjoy them. Some I do. I mean, I do, but I think we're in a climate now where you offend everybody all the time with, and I don't, I hope that changes. I do hope it. I hope it goes back to letting people just be funny. Um, and but what I've done a lot is physical comedy, and that doesn't change. That's always going to be funny. Um, but the yeah, I'm a big fan of the 30s, 40s, 1950s, 1960s, and some of the stuff we did in the 70s and 80s, but not uh, the difference. I'll tell you what the difference is. Anybody gets a TV show now. An act for 2 minutes, and suddenly you have a TV show, and you haven't developed your act. You haven't developed your comedy, so it all starts to look alike and sound alike. Whereas to me, all the great TV shows, you took a seasoned comedian, you took what they did, and you showcased it as a situation comedy. Those were the funniest ones to me. The Dick Van Dyke Show, Carl Reiner, and that whole show. I don't know if you know that one. Um, that was great. The Honeymooners, Jackie Gleason, um, Lucy. Oh, those to me were funnier because you had people who knew what they were doing and didn't have to learn on the job. You know, that's my take.
Great day, and I will try to do my best translating.
Okay.
John dice que incluso él siente que el pico de la comedia se dio. Lo que pasa es que al ser fanático de Lucy, él estudió a la gente con la que Lucy aprendió. De hecho, Lucy estudió con los más grandes. Por ejemplo, Buster Keaton fue el que le dijo a ella cómo usar props, por ejemplo. Entonces, dice que siente que incluso hasta los 70 y 80 en una parte se hizo la mejor comedia. Eh, Dice que el problema ahora es que tú haces un acto, o sea, cualquiera puede ser televisión ahora, tú haces un acto en 2 segundos y tienes un show, y los que él siente que son los maestros llevaban años perfeccionando su arte. Entonces ya cuando tenían una carrera, de cierta forma, mostrando, pues, o sea, es como cuando tú llevas lo que cuentas en las tablas a guiones de televisión. Entonces por eso él dice que lo que se hacía antes, o sea, esos nombres que mencionó, era mejor porque era gente que ya estaba llevando a cabo su acto en televisión después de haberlo llevado a cabo mucho tiempo. Y dice que pues sí que no es muy fan así de las comedias modernas ahora por eso.
Ok. Y por último, ¿cómo define todo su trabajo en una palabra?
Wow, the question that you always do, but I cannot wait for your answer because many years. Uh, Try to define your career in one word.
Fun, fun. I never felt like I've worked a day in my life.
You know, the crazy thing is that fun in English is a syllable, and in Spanish are three. Diversión. And the phrase that you told me sounds really beautiful in Spanish. It's like, John, él siente que nunca tuvo que trabajar un día en su vida.
Ah,
Siempre se divirtió.
No, increíble.
Good.
Y por último, redes sociales, website, saludos para Colombia. Y bueno, luego la foto.
Con un saludo, pero no mentiras. The camera is yours, so you can tell your social media so people can follow you. Send a big hi to wherever you want, Colombia, the world. The camera is yours, man. Go ahead.
Well, you can. Where can you see me? Where can you find me? Our website. Well, not in Spanish, but vanzantmillmore.com. You can find us on Instagram. BVZ, my initials, 1213, my birthday. BVZ 1213, and I've written 2 books. I happen to have one here. They're in English, so you can learn your English with my books. This one's about the plays. This is about the TV shows. So they're both on Amazon and stuff. But you can always find what I'm doing through my website, and hopefully I'll be around to do it for a lot longer than I've done it already. But and I have to notice your last name is Ricardo. Pretty good.
I want to ask you that. In fact, I really want to ask you that. No, let me tell you something. I think we got, John, creo que tenemos tiempo, ¿cierto? It's crazy because, let me tell you, and I want to ask you something. Ricardo is in my family, for the, even my mother, in fact, my father is called Ricardo. That name, Andres, is one of the most popular names in Colombia, like Juan, for example. But they, in my family, they got there is a lot of Ricardos in my family. Myself, Andres Ricardo, Mario Ricardo, etc., etc., etc. But the question, and I'm happy because I love being a Ricardo. Did you see what is your opinion about the movie? We got one of the actresses here, but being, yes, an authority about writing about Lucy, I want to know what is your opinion about the movie, and maybe the casting of Javier Bardem. I mean, and Spanish doing a Latino, but what I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, what did I think of the movie? I thought it was a good movie, but I knew the writers of I Love Lucy. They were not portrayed properly. They were portrayed as idiots, as far as I was concerned, and I think people who don't know how a TV show works and don't know how anything about film and don't know anything about the details of that, they probably enjoyed it much more than I did. I was picking it apart as I went, and I wish they didn't show Nicole Kidman doing a comedy. She was fine off stage, but I didn't like her on stage. And but I'm also protective. I'm protective of Lucy and Desi. So but I liked the Lucy Arnaz put out a documentary that is so much better. I would recommend that instead. But I thought Mr. Bardem was miscast, but did the best he could, and the same with Nicole Kidman. And they changed the history of everything and they crammed it all into one episode. And I get why they did that, but it was a tough thing to take on. Here's my thing on this. Aaron Sorkin, who wrote it, you could tell he never appreciated sitcoms because he made fun of it instead of embracing what we do for a living. And I can tell he's never been in a comedy writer's room in his life because that's not the way we work, So Not to insult anybody who had anything to do with the film, they made the best film they could. But to me, I'm very protective of Lucy and Desi, and I want them to always get the respect they deserve.
Thank you. And yes, being on Ricardo, I love that you mentioned my name. I love it, by the way. And I will translate. Yo tenía que hacer esa pregunta. Primero agradecerle, obviamente, a Billy porque reconoció mi nombre, tú sabes, ¿no? Mi nombre tiene mucho que ver con Lucy. Le conté la historia del nombre y familia. No es una historia larga, que generalmente en mi familia hay muchos Ricardos, tanto por el lado del papá como de la mamá. Y yo le tenía que hacer la pregunta, ¿qué opino de la película? Dice que, aunque digamos que de cierta forma le pareció, no le pareció mala, el problema es que siente que no, él conoció a los escritores de Lucy y siente que en la película, como los representan, no es así. O sea, que siente que Bardem y Nicole hicieron lo mejor, pero no le gustó mucho la decisión de casting, tú sabes, ¿no? Pues Bardem siendo un español haciendo un latino. Y siente que pues tú sabes, Aaron Sorkin no le dio el nivel que se le tiene que dar a las sitcoms, pero por eso él recomienda el documental que hizo Lucía Arnaz, la hija de sí.
Sí.
Entonces, esa es la opinión. Tenía que hacerla, yo me tiene disculpas porque sí mencionó mi
No,
nombre.
estaba bien. Agradecerle a Eddie que muchas gracias por la oportunidad y que bienvenido siempre. Que la verdad, muy amable.
¿Tú tomaste la foto? No, y voy a pedirle el saludo de pronto. I'm gonna ask you a favor, because I know that friend will appreciate this, and John will send me the taping. John, me envías la grabación, ¿cierto? There is a friend called Marcy. Man, it's crazy because she's like a young woman. This is my age, but she's an old soul, man. She always mention Lucy, mention Star Trek, and I know she will be happy you send Hi Marcy. And yes, John say that thank you for being here. Thank you for all the we know that we got some accidents. It always happens in television. So the camera is yours. You can send a bit hi to Marcy.
Hi, Marcy. Hola.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ya,
Billy, muchas gracias por la oportunidad, por el espacio. Good pleasure. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Master.
And I cannot feel more humble and great to being called Ricardo, man, after this interview. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
No, you're welcome.